Every lesson is a lyric in the universal song. Oh, the lessons of the journey, I'll weave them in my song.
Hello and welcome to Lessons of the Journey, where we discuss the stuff we actually needed to learn in school with Coach Jen and Coach Nicole.
We're so happy you joined us today. Thank you for spending some time. Today, we're going to talk about the psychological, cultural, personal distinctions between relaxation and laziness. And we really want to empower you all, the listeners, to rethink your relationship with rest.
So when was the last time you did absolutely nothing without any guilt?
Oh, I don't know. Life doesn't exist without guilt, right?
Right? And I pose that question to everyone listening. I pose that question to you, Jen. I pose that question to me because I was like, I find I have to have a little chat with myself when I start feeling the guilt and going, wait, rest is okay, rest is okay. So we're working on this too. Let's start by defining relaxation versus laziness. Jen, what is your definition and comparison for relaxation and laziness so we can all agree?
Okay. Relaxation, as defined by dictionary.com, it's a noun, abatement or relief from bodily or mental work, effort, application, etc., or an activity or recreation that provides such relief, diversion, entertainment. And I think that we will stick to that. There's 6 of those fun definitions, but we'll stick to what those 2 are for relaxation. So that versus the definition of laziness, having or showing an unwillingness to work, or the fact or quality of encouraging idleness. And we'll stick with those 2.
I think what we're talking about is encouraging idleness to a large
what's
degree.
Really interesting about the example sentence for laziness in that particular definition? It says, we relaxed in the laziness of the warm afternoon, watching as the sun began to set.
See, that just sounds warm and comforting and welcoming.
We relaxed in the laziness. So that tells me right there that they're different and yet related.
Because that's not a negative. And yet that definition where you talked about avoiding work.
Unwillingness to work.
Unwillingness to work.
Yeah.
So I think the clarity there, which funnily enough, it always seems to come down to the time of it. Like if I have an unwillingness to work in the moment, that's perfectly okay. But if I have an unwillingness to work in my entirety of lifetime, okay, that's not okay. So again, it becomes that time span, whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, an unwillingness to work in the moment, fantastic. That's a boundary.
Well, and that's actually the 3rd definition in relaxation. It says a loosening or slackening. So I'm going to loosen the bang, I'm going to produce, I'm going to loosen that for a moment and allow myself to relax from that mental work, effort, application, which is that first definition.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So many definitions and so many different ways that they can go.
Yeah. That's why words are important.
Yes. So for today, I think we're talking about relaxation in a completely positive sense. I don't think there's any negative connotation for that. I think laziness we're kind of taking could go both ways. Do we agree?
I agree.
And I'm going to say that the only reason I would let it go both ways is because societally it has gone both ways. Now, would I like to take laziness and just say, you know what, laziness can be a good thing? I would, but I don't think it's realistic in the societal connotation that it exists right now. So I think we have to take that both ways.
Yeah. Well, it's that nasty 4-letter word. It's L-A-Z-Y. You're being lazy. Ugh, it's such a nasty thing to say to somebody. The offense that is taken, but the offense that is meant usually in our English language, that you're telling somebody something that you are judging about them, and it is meant to be kind of derogatory.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And I'm thinking in my head, like if somebody's saying to me, hey, you're being lazy, would that ever be a positive? That would not feel like a positive to me. If somebody said, hey, you're being lazy, or then again, if somebody says, is today a lazy day? Now it starts to feel like it might be
Yeah.
actually a little bit of a positive there. So I think we'll agree to that. That can go both
Okay.
directions. I think that's important.
Yes.
All right. So what's ahead for today? We're going to talk about psychology, societal norms, and we're going to definitely have some practical takeaways. This is interesting. A 2021 study by the American Psychological Association, say that 3 times fast, American Psychological Association, reported that 79% of workers experience work-related stress. We have a whole series on that. Go check it out, folks. And 36% cited exhaustion as a regular feeling. I mean, I don't take exhaustion lightly. Exhaustion to me is like the end of the spectrum of tired. Like I am way past tired. That's terrifying.
Yeah. And having kids, the example of exhaustion, my kids won't go to sleep. Oh, I am so done. I am at the end of my attempt at the gentle parenting. I am at the end of my stressful day. And any other possible thing that could have come up in that day that doesn't have anything to do with family life, I am at the end of the day exhausted. And that is not a good feeling. Have you ever been so tired you can't sleep?
Yes. Overtired. Sure. Yeah. Toddlers do it all the time, right?
Straight exhaustion. Run yourself ragged. Yeah.
And I want to be clear, when we talk about workers, it's any job. I don't care if your job is in the home with taking care of children. In fact, that's the job you never get a break from. But I want to be really clear that when I say workers, to me, that's anybody who's got any form of a job. And I think we all do to some degree.
Well, and as we were talking about just right before that, is laziness. Is it misunderstood or is it misdiagnosed by the people around us or by ourselves? And there's a whole thing, the word neurodivergent. It seems like it's like one of those buzzwords right now. And also executive dysfunction. I think that as we move as a society, these two very real things have in the past or are currently still being mislabeled as laziness. So let's just for everybody define what neurodivergence is. It refers to a variation in the way that your brain processes information, the way that you learn, the way that you behave compared to what is considered, and again, air quotes, typical. So neuro, of course, is relating to the nerves or your nervous system. And then executive function is a group of cognitive skills that involve planning, organizing, initiating, and completing tasks, as well as regulating your emotions and your behavior. So they're different things. Neurodivergence having to do with the way that you function. And that's in all of life, whether it's in your job, in your home, as a parent, all of these things take executive function. So when we are experiencing dysfunction, we have trouble planning and organizing things, procrastination. It's totally hard to initiate tasks. Impulsivity, difficulty controlling emotions, poor time management and forgetfulness, difficulty multitasking or shifting between tasks, problem with working memory, like short term. I walked into a room and I don't remember why. Difficulty monitoring and adjusting your own performance based on all of that is happening.
When you're going through that, are you seeing something that is really similar that has those same symptoms?
Menopause?
Yes, I'm sitting here going, well, okay, so we're actually dealing with executive dysfunction when we're dealing with menopause.
Yeah.
This could be caused by many different things. I mean, I know people I feel like lack these as a general rule. It's just not the way their brain functions. They may or may not be actually on the neurodivergence spectrum, but their brains have difficulty with this. And then I'm sitting here going, my brain's having difficulty with all of this stuff in the current moment, even though I never used to. So now I'm functioning through executive dysfunction.
Yeah. So also I sit with so many people and I go, oh, my ADHD, it's undiagnosed. And, CHADD, CHADD.org, they speak about neurodivergence and executive dysfunction. And it's mislabeled as laziness regarding ADHD because this non-diagnosed in many adults, Where did it come from? There are adults that have experienced this for such a long time, and it wasn't a diagnosis. It was labeled as lazy. And it just shows up in so many different ways for people. So many adults I know these days are getting a late diagnosis of ADHD. And it has to do with all of this, the executive dysfunction, the way that our brains have been wired or have trouble rewiring based on what is going on with the neurodivergence. It's really a fascinating thing. When we were growing up, Nicole, no kids were ADHD. That wasn't a thing. That was like a new thing as we were growing. It was not very much a diagnosed thing for children.
No, it wasn't. I think this is a point where we should bring something up. And it's the concept that we talk about diagnosis and we talk about ADHD and we talk about quote unquote typical or normal. And I think we have to be so cautious of that in our current society, because I feel like our brains function on a spectrum. Absolutely. And that spectrum of functioning is healthy because it gives us a diversity of individuals. I think the problem was when we didn't have diagnosis for like ADHD. And I take every one of these things as just a knowledge of how I function and how I can better function when things are happening a certain way. It's purely for information.
Information, yeah.
I have to be honest. I do not, so far, I've never registered as on the neurodivergence scale. I almost was sad to hear that because I felt like, well, but I'm super smart. Like, I know people that are on the scale and I know people that are not. And I don't think of it as a bad thing. I think of it as just interesting information about how you function. And it may make your social interactions different, or the way you think about things, or the way you do your executive function. So I feel like all of this is just information, and we have to get away from the fact that it becomes judgment. Maybe we need to do an episode on neurodivergence. This is not, but I just wanted to get on my soapbox a little bit and say, even though we use terms like diagnosis and typical or normal, I think the problem is that we made the box. And that's why nobody was saying, oh, that person had ADHD. Because now we say, oh, that ADHD person has something to give. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the space we're going toward. I don't think we all think that way, but I think that is the way to think about it. That's my take on it. I don't know how you feel, Jen.
Yeah, I really like that, because I think just not even long ago, back in the 1900s, when my parents were born, and I'm just a generation away from this, it was, obviously I wasn't there, the 1950s, where it was like, ooh, we don't share the nastiness of life. Everybody is doing kind of the same thing. And like what you said, Nicole, the box, everybody fits into the box. And if you don't fit in the box, you need to make yourself fit in the box, or at least you don't talk about not fitting in the box. And so you don't want to do something to make yourself stand out. That's not acceptable in that time frame. And as we have moved along in society, it's very much shifted into the no, stand out. You have something to give. It's more important that you are all of who you are than to try to fit in. And it's really been a beautiful thing. I think that those boomers are still alive. And so there's that thought that's kind of ingrained in cellularly, and it will go away as society progresses, but there's still that inlay of you're only worth what you put out, and you're only worth if you fit in. And if you don't fit in, if you do stand out, if you're not producing, then you're different. And we don't want to be different. These days, be different. We're encouraging our kids, go be you. Don't be anybody else. Be as wild and wacky and wonderful as you are, and embrace all of who you are. I love that messaging. I think it's just going to take another generation or so to really have that be the inlay, the cellular design, because there's still that thing about don't be different. And so that, again, cultural. We're moving along culturally. And I just said it, Western capitalism equates our worth with our output. So if you had any type of executive dysfunction or any neurodivergence, you were probably not looked at as producing enough or being in line with what fit in to the norm or the standards. I think that that's an important thing to take a look at too. There's still this idea that if you're not producing, if you're not making things happen, then you are not worthy. You don't have the output. You don't contribute to the societal norm. And I think we're getting away from that, but it still exists. There's still that produce. Businesses especially, work the overtime, work the weekends. You're like, oh man, I need a break. But it's frowned upon. When you need a break, oh, you're being lazy. That's that negative connotation there. Idle hands are the devil's work. If you're not doing something, you're going to go find some trouble, and you can't do that. You have to stay busy with what we define as okay, because you're going to get in trouble if you're not doing what we say is good. And I think that those are important things to recognize, that it's still bubbles in our society, that these things exist. And that's why lazy has that nasty connotation that we're talking about.
Yeah. We have to get away from that. So let's talk about the science of doing nothing. Relaxation reduces your cortisol levels and enhances your parasympathetic nervous system activity. That's according to the National Institutes of Health. So why do you care? Okay, great. So my cortisol level goes down and my parasympathetic nervous system gets enhanced. Well, here's why you might care. So here's the mental benefits of that. Improves your creativity, your memory consolidation, and your emotional regulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you care about that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about active versus passive rest, because there are two different types of rest. Active rest is when you're doing something and you're resting. So think yoga, reading, nature walks. So either physically or mentally, you're doing something. Passive would be like naps, zoning out. It could be TV. It depends on how actively you're watching TV, because reading, of course, you're processing in your brain as well. TV can be processing. I think of some of the things I watch and go, no, I'm paying attention and learning.
Uh-huh.
So that's active. But then other things I watch and I'm like, who's that character again? My husband. I'm like, I'm zoning out to the TV. You know, it is kind of ironic. The more we try to push through exhaustion in the name of productivity, the less productive we actually become.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a growing body of research showing that rest isn't just recovery. It's actually part of the work. One book I found fascinating is Rest, Why You Get More Done When You Work Less by Alex Sujung Kim Pang. He dives into how high achievers, from scientists to artists, actually structure their days around deep rest. Not even rest, deep rest. Not because they're lazy, but because they know their best ideas come when the brain is off duty.
Isn't that the truth?
We all know this.
You have your best ideas in the shower?
Not in the shower for me. You know what? I'm a menial task person. I love to sweep and like menial things that are like, and I call it my download sessions. Like, I'm just like, okay, wait, I got to write some things down now. It's like all the good ideas are coming at me. Mm-hmm. That's the truth. When our brain is off duty, we've all been there. We've all had those moments where we let it go, and then suddenly it's all just coming in. It's that brain being off duty. And this is backed up by science. A study published in the Journal of Organizational Behavior found that people coming back from structured vacations not only felt better, they were actually more effective at work. But here's the catch. That boost fades unless rest becomes a regular habit. If you're not sure how to make rest a regular habit, we have an episode on habits.
Yep.
So if you've ever felt guilty for taking a nap, or just for sitting in silence for 10 minutes, remember this: your brain might be doing some of its best work when you're doing absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that.
That's why sleep is so important, because you're processing all of the things that happened during the day. What did I learn? What did I talk about? What needs to stick? All of the things that happened in that day need time to sink in. And if you're busy, you're not processing any of this information. Yeah. And that's when we start driving to work and not thinking about it.
Yeah. You're not present.
Because I'm doing too much.
Yeah.
I have actually found myself saying that a lot out loud. Oh, Jen, you're doing too much right now. You need to stop. You're doing too much. And that is part of my recovery from being raised as a producer. You go, you do, you produce. You know, Nicole and I are talking about this. We're not immune from it.
No.
We're high functioning individuals, and it is really tough to remind ourselves to sit down, to take a break, to let our brains chill out.
Here's the challenge for everybody. Can you sit still for 5 minutes without looking at your phone?
I can now.
And you kind of go, well, I could do it. And yeah, I mean, if you challenge me, I could do it. But
you'd be thinking about it. You'd be thinking about it.
I'm not going to pick up my phone. I'm not going to pick up my phone. Yeah, that's kind of what we do, because we're always looking for that stimulus. Mm-hmm. And we have to be very intentional. It's not just recovery. It's part of the work.
See, and I love that, because the thing that comes up is, are we relaxing or are we avoiding? So relaxation versus avoidance. Am I avoiding doing something and calling it relaxation? So when does relaxation become escapism? So binge watching Netflix, doom scrolling social media, oversleeping regularly. This can be a mask for emotional avoidance. So it's really important to be aware if things are shifting within us and we're asking these questions. Am I restoring or am I escaping? And I think that might sit somebody down. Am I really restoring myself? Am I choosing to actively rest or passively rest in this time that I need to decompress? Or am I escaping from something? Am I avoiding something? Is there something that's very pressing that I haven't figured out how I'm going to approach it, or it scares me, or I'm worried about it, and I'm just going to avoid it? I'm going to push it off until I can't do it anymore. That's really a form of self-sabotage as well. We've talked about journaling before and our calendars. I think that when you're able to get it out, really understand what's going on, journaling or time tracking your rest, that can really clarify your patterning. You know me, I like to take notes on everything about me. I like to know my patterns, because who needs to know me best? Me.
I think that question is amazing. Am I restoring or am I escaping? I even think it might be a good strategy for someone to sit down and say, what are my restorative activities? Because I can right now tell you 3 things that make me feel restored. Right off the bat, I'm already thinking about the hike I can go on. You know what I mean? Like, I know the 3 things right off the bat, but I also know 3 things that I'm escaping.
Yes.
Have you ever actually written those things down so that when you do them, you go, yeah, okay, let's pick the alternative, and just being cognizant of that. I think most people know that about themselves, at least a couple things that they do to restore and a couple things they do to escape right off the bat.
Oh, yeah. Rarely do we do that, though, if I'm being honest with myself, because then it puts a whole lot of things in the forefront. That really is me being avoidant versus, I've been working a lot. I've been dealing with multiple personalities. I really need some time in my garden. Obviously, I'm speaking about myself personally. Right. And whatever your thing is that grounds you, gives you that rest. So people who mindfully rest, mindfully is the key word there, report 25% higher levels of life satisfaction than those who engage in passive, unconscious downtime. And that's from the Journal of Happiness Studies from 2020. And first, really, Journal of Happiness Studies, please. Thank you. Give me all of the answers.
Right. We're going to look up all the details of that one.
Yeah. And I can speak personally. I know that when I turn the TV on for background noise, and I don't do much doom scrolling, because I've cultivated my social media in really positive content kind of stuff. I have a game on my phone. So when I turn the TV on for background noise and I'm just staring and I'm playing this game, this is me being extremely passive, zoning out. That is avoidance. I know that about myself. You just heard me say I love time in my garden. So when you do those things, the engage in your rest, those are the things that the Journal of Happiness Studies tells us is going to help you feel better, 25% better in all of life. So my kids aren't really jerks. I just needed some time in my garden. That guy the other day, he wasn't being I just needed to take a break for a minute. And it's really an interesting way.
You mean every driver's not a piece of shit?
I tell you, I've been 13 years in Hawaii, coming from Southern California. Road rage was just in me when I got here. And there are still days, the slow moving Hawaii, where I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, I think there's a good point to make also. And again, this comes back to the time. I think even if you are just binge scrolling, set a timer, binge scroll for 30 minutes and then be done. Because I think it can be that relaxation initially and then turn to avoidance also if the time becomes too long. I've heard studies before, and I don't have these handy, but they said at a certain period of time, if you do it for 15 minutes or you do it for 30 minutes, it's okay. It's once you pass that point, then it becomes a waste of your time and energy. It's not relaxing you anymore. Maybe for the first few, it took your brain away. As long as it's good stuff, We call it in our house the rabbit hole. Be careful of the rabbit hole,
Yep.
especially in today's society. It's really easy to get down a rabbit hole that just frustrates you or turns you angry or gets you mad or gets you sad, or don't go through those things. That's not the emotions we're looking for. But the checking out, I think, the doom scrolling, checking out, I think is okay for short periods of time. It's once they get longer. So, and we've talked about this before. Social media is made to just keep you on. So set your timer before you start.
Yeah. And that varies for everybody. Me, for example, I can get about 30 minutes of solid work done before I'm like, oh, I really need a distraction. That distraction can be 5 minutes. Maybe I'm going to text a friend. Maybe I am going to take a look at Instagram or something like that. Then it's the get back to work. So that's a very aware way of, oh, I'm going to give myself a break because I've been in it for 30 solid minutes. Man, my brain can't do much more than that. And some people are different. Some people can go an hour. Some people can go 15 minutes. I think as long as you are good with who you are and how you work, and that makes sense and it works for you, your job, your family, good. Nobody's here to judge what that looks like.
That's an excellent point, and that's excellent self-awareness. I think you're absolutely right. Knowing what you need in your relaxation comparative to your work output, that's huge. Being able to be at that point and know, because some people might listen to that and go, Jen, you can only work for 30 minutes before you need a 5-minute break. And they might work for 3 hours, but honestly, only the first 30 minutes is highly productive because maybe that's actually their burnout time. We think a lot of people have a tendency to go longer until they feel that burnout instead of being proactive about it. Like you said, maybe they go 3 hours and then they need 45 minutes of a break because it's been so long and they're so burned out. I always look at quality of output. If you're going 3 hours and your quality of output is dropping every 30 minutes, I would rather you take that 5-minute break.
Yeah.
And know that about yourself. So that's huge self-awareness. And I love that. I'm all about actually high productivity. I'm just not about high productivity for burnout. I'm about optimization of how your body functions. And I think that's what we're talking about. And great point. Thank you for bringing that up. It's such an important thing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Really quick, let's divert a little bit. Let's pretend you work in an office. Well, I've been there. I'm not currently. And there's a lot of folks that we're in an office. We're at a construction site, whatever that looks like. The expectation is that you have a longer amount of output because you're there for 8 or 9 hours. You get a 15-minute break in such and such time. You get your lunch for 30 minutes that you're probably eating in the office. What does that look like? What can that look like? I guess I'll put the term a more traditional type of atmosphere where you're clocking in, you're working, and then you're going home. They're changing a little bit in the way that they're allowing their workers to be productive. And you can get up from your desk and take a 5-minute walk around the building. You can get up and take a bathroom break. You can get up and go get a glass of water from the water cooler or whatever that looks like. It's the ability to recognize, okay, after a certain amount of time, I need to take my eyes off the screen. I need a change of scenery, anything to allow myself to get up, move my body, come back, try again. And that's really important too. Just like what you said, is finding the ways to allow that for yourself while not pissing off the people that you work
Even
for.
like you said, going to get a glass of water or going to get a coffee or standing up and stretching or going to talk to somebody about something that's not work. So how's your weekend? Great. What'd you do? Just that 5-minute chit chat with someone. It's like, okay, my brain got to take a break from what I'm focusing on. That's the key.
So even if we do get to check out from work, very often our brains are not checked out from work. Yes, we physically left there, but our brains are carrying around lots of things that maybe we need to put down. Really, one of the reasons relaxation gets such a bad rap in our culture is because we've been taught to see that rest is the opposite of ambition. If you think about it, from school when we were young to work to social media, we are constantly fed the message that our value, who we are as people, is tied to what we produce. Well, the hustle culture, it celebrates the grind. It rarely celebrates the sustainability or the mental well-being. So here's the kicker. Relaxation often looks like laziness from the outside. It's people judging our relaxation. But internally, it's doing something totally different for us. It's actually regulating our stress. It's restoring emotional balance. It's even enhancing your creative capacity. Really, the problem isn't that we rest too much. It's often that we don't know how to rest in a way that totally and truly refuels us. So that's why this conversation matters, because when we mistake relaxation for laziness, we are denying ourselves a very key part of our humanness.
It's very true. I remember this. It's a fable or whatever it's called. It's like a story that's told over time. And so the American guy goes to Mexico and he finds this guy and he's fishing and he's got a boat and he's like, hey, if you got a couple more boats, you could have a fleet of boats and then you could make more money and then you could retire. And the guy goes, well, what would I do when I retire? And he's like, well, you could just hang out on your boat and fish. And he's like, that's what I'm doing. I didn't tell it right. I know I didn't. But it's that concept of like the hustle culture wants you to get somewhere that some people already are. It's like, we don't have to go through all that process. So let's talk about rest with intention. How do we actually rest? What are some things we can do? And I don't mean collapsing on the couch and doom scrolling TikTok for 2 hours. Again, we're not talking about that. That's not rest. That's just escaping like you talked about. Intentional rest means choosing to do something that genuinely restores you, mind, body, and or soul. Sometimes we just need to restore our mind. Sometimes we just need to restore our body. Sometimes we need to restore our soul. Sometimes we need to restore all three. We've all been there. And it can look different for everyone. But here are some of the most powerful ways to rest on purpose. First, we're going to talk about mindful breathing, which we talk about breathing a lot, and or meditation. So just 10 minutes a day of focusing on your breath, or using a guided meditation app. And these phones can be used for good or evil.
Yes.
Make your choice. Make your phone your power piece. These apps are wonderful. Guided meditation apps can lower your stress hormones and help your brain hit reset.
Mm-hmm.
Jen talks about the breathing, the box breathing. What is that? 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold, right?
Yep.
Yes. Then there's nature time. A walk outside. This is the caveat. This can be optional, but I'm saying this is not optional. Nature time. Leave your phone at home or in your car. Do not take your phone on your nature time. Nature can lower anxiety and boost your mood in ways a treadmill just can't. I come to the tree hugger. I grew up in Santa Cruz and we were admitted tree huggers. When somebody says to me, oh, are you a tree hugger? I'm like, well, yeah, I love nature. Of course I'm a tree. Like, why wouldn't I be? Why wouldn't everybody be? Nature's amazing. Spend time in nature. Mm-hmm. You might also try some of those slow analog activities. Things like journaling. We've talked about this. Puzzles. I love puzzles. Actual physical puzzles. Mm-hmm. I do them. And they are wonderful for my brain. Reading or knitting, crocheting. You could go on, I'm going to say Amazon because this is where I've seen them, but you can go to whatever store you like. They sell those kits now. You can literally.
I just bought one from Walmart. Yeah,
you can crochet like a little mini duck. I mean,
I got a penguin.
Is that? I love it. I want to see your penguin when it's done. They're called quiet hobbies. They really let your brain wander in a way that's incredibly restorative. I love it. One of my favorite things today, I bought it's called a puzzle board. It's like a table that has pull out things. And I put together 1,000-piece puzzles on the regular. I always have a puzzle going and I turn that on. And sometimes I'll turn on some classical music in the background. And it's like, man, my brain can I love it. That's one of my things to do. Mm-hmm. And yes, naps.
Love me a good nap.
I know you're one of the nap club girls. A 20-minute nap can actually improve your memory, alertness, and creative thinking. Just don't go too long or you'll hit the groggy zone. Set your alarm.
Yes.
Another underrated option is music or sound therapy. Mm-hmm. I actually have the singing bowls and my grandchildren are always banging those things. I love it. So think about ambient music, binaural beats. Okay, I knew what this was, but I didn't actually know what the term was called. The binaural beat is when you put the headphones in and you're getting one sound on this side and one sound on the other. And apps do this. They help to calm your nervous system. I think that's amazing. And no screen needed, just music. Yeah. You can also create that ritual of rest, good sleep hygiene, lighting the candle before you stretch or journal before bed, small cues that can help train your brain to shift into that rest mode. One of my personal favorites, a digital detox, blocking out time where you deliberately unplug from your phone, your inbox, and your feeds. even just a few hours can help you really feel mentally cleansed. I actually like to do a digital detox on Sundays. Sunday's my off day. I put my phone in a drawer. I love to do that. And finally, you don't want to forget the basics. Good sleep is the foundation of all rest, because no matter how hard you try, you cannot meditate your way out of sleep deprivation. You were talking about it earlier, Jen. That's literally our restorative time. That is number one most important thing. You have to get a good night's sleep because your brain has to reorient.
Yes. And that is literally why it's also a form of torture. Sleep deprivation is a form of torture. You lose your mind if you don't get enough sleep. People, get your rest. And we're not talking about, no, I can get by on 5 hours. No. I mean, you think you can. Your body is physically there, but can you really?
Yeah.
Are you getting the rest and restore that you need from that amount of time? And the more studies being done, they're really saying, no, that 5 hours is bullshit. Yes, you can get your body up. You can drink some coffee and be on a caffeine high all day, but you're really not showing up to the fullest of your ability. The studies are showing that it really is 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep necessary for us to work or just show up in life at the highest and best that we can be. Don't fool yourself. Your 5 hours, it's not cutting it.
Yeah. And I know even for me personally, if I have a really heavy exercise day, there's once in a while I'll do an intense class in the morning and then I'll play pickleball for 2 hours. I'll burn 1,300 calories that day. I need an extra hour to cover for what my physical load was on my body for that. I need that extra hour. Now, mind you, I'm 54. Probably a 20-something needs an extra 10 minutes. I need an extra hour to recover and rest from that physical work. I love doing it. It exhilarates me, and I have to take the recovery piece of it too. The bottom line is this: real rest isn't passive in your life. It's a practice, and it's worth showing up for, just like anything else that matters in your life. And of course, because this is Jen and I, we are going to tell you to calendar it. Schedule your rest. Put it in your calendar. This is important.
Yeah.
It's not an option.
And you don't need to tell anybody what that appointment is. It's an appointment with yourself. It is self-care. It is none of anybody's business. If you feel like you're going to get judged for telling somebody, 1 o'clock is my nap time, don't tell them you have an appointment at 1 o'clock. I'll be ready at 1:30, whatever that looks like. I actually have a nap buddy. We'll check in. We'll be like, did you get your nap this week? And there are more and more studies coming out about the benefits of a nap. And whereas I used to be like, I'm scared to tell somebody that I took a nap today because of how I'll feel saying it or how they might receive it as whatever, Jen didn't do anything today. More and more studies are coming out about past historical figures who regularly napped, who like changed the world, and really how much more productive you can be. Can I fall asleep in 20 minutes? Not regularly. However, my body shut down for 20 minutes. My brain was able to kind of disconnect. So did I sleep for 20? No. And do I feel better getting up and moving? Yes, I do. Do not let other people judge your versions of rest and relax. It's easy to judge other people. Nobody wants to sit and do the work themselves. So remember, you have an appointment with yourself.
I would agree with that 100%. I would also add that if somebody says to you, how was your day? You could say, I'm having a fantastic day because I got a nap.
Yeah.
Let's change the narrative around it. Why is it only 2-year-olds that get naps? Why do we stop taking naps?
Can I tell you, I totally regret all of those naps that I didn't want to take when I was young.
Can we have those back?
And consider that it's cultural. We spoke about that a little bit earlier. There are cultures where they prioritize rest, a siesta, right?
Yep.
After lunch, you've been up, you've been doing hard work. You're in the hottest time of the day. You're going to find shade and take your little hat and put it over, and you're just going to take a little rest. Consider that the work that you are grinding toward really has been placed in you, and that you can choose to look at it differently because other cultures do.
That's a very good point. Take your siesta. Call it a siesta. That's much more acceptable.
You know, in my Calm app, there is an entire nap section. They've got different voices in anywhere between like 20 and 24 minutes. And you wake up to a gentle bird song and you go about your day. There's like 4 or 5 different ones with different voices that are specifically for nap. And it talks about, our devices need to unplug. We also need to unplug sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So as Nicole was saying, schedule your rest like their meetings. Practice non-doing with no guilt. For some of us, we have to be very mindful of this, very mindful. Sometimes it helps talking to safe people and saying it out loud a few times so that you can hear yourself say it out loud and not feel that guilty feeling. I saw something on social media, it cracked me up. It was this man and he was like, why does my nothing mean something to somebody else? Like, what are you doing tonight? Nothing. Oh, let me fill that time. He's like, no, you don't understand. I was looking forward to nothing. Nothing was it for me. And you're trying to take my nothing away from me by something? It was hilarious. And I was like, yes, sir. Absolutely. Why do we let people do that? They judge our nothing or our not doing with trying to give us something to do. And we're like, no. So be okay with that no statement that we talk about as a complete sentence. Reframe laziness. It's a signal that we need something. It is not a flaw. You need rest. That's it. You need rest. So Nicole and I would like to ask our listeners, we want to know what you're doing this week without guilt to rest. We'd love for you to post it on our social media, on Instagram. Let us know what is one way you will rest without guilt this week. We're interested.
Definitely. I love that. Before we do our takeaways, just remember scientific research shows that intentional rest doesn't just recharge us emotionally. It literally makes our brains work better. Studies have found that people who integrate regular downtime experience better memory, sharper focus, and more creative output. Yeah, I'm all about that. Let's go into our takeaways.
I love being reminded that I could do this better. Yeah. And I don't think I'm the only one. Anybody listening to this hopefully is like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I could do this better, or I could do it at all and start not feeling guilty about it. Mm-hmm. It is a regular practice. I really do have to coach myself down sometimes. Jen, this nap is okay. It's not taking away from anything. I almost have to convince myself sometimes. And so one of my takeaways is you don't have to do that. Just consider it part of your schedule. Not, oh, it's okay, you deserve this. I don't have to hype up my rest. I just take it and let it be that next appointment for myself. And so that's really what I'm refreshing on from this one. So thank you.
Nice. Mine's kind of similar. I feel like the more we get permission, the more society gives us permission, or we give ourselves permission, or we have conversations around the permission for things, the permission for rest, the permission for relaxation. I can know cognitively that this is amazing for me. And still the old patterning and the old agreements will show up, to use your terminology. I'm a work in progress. So for me to hear this again, that relaxation and that rest is not only okay, it is necessary and required for me to function at my highest level.
Love that.
I'm a work in progress.
Aren't we all?
Yes.
Thank you for saying that out loud.
Yes.
All right. Question time.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
Okay. I'll answer first this time.
Okay. So the question is, do you believe in karma? And if so, why?
I would want to take myself to the dictionary for definition of karma. I believe in energy. Okay. I believe that what you put out, you get back. My understanding about the idea of karma is that
principle of cause and effect in Indian religions like Hinduism and Buddhism describes how an individual's actions, thoughts, and intentions, both current and past, influence their future.
Yeah, I think to a degree I do, and not in a religious sense, just energetically. And not necessarily that, I had this thought when I was 5 and one day it'll come back to me. Not to that extent. However, I do believe that the way you show up is the way you're going to be received energetically. And so if you show up feeling kind of shitty, you're probably not going to be received well. And if you're putting some sort of negative energy, it's going to come right back to you. But it's almost like an immediate, I don't sit there and believe that ooh, I had a bad day on January 17th and my day's coming at some point in the future. I don't think that. I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's more good karma is associated with positive actions and leads to favorable outcomes, while bad karma results from negative actions and can lead to less desirable results. I don't think it's an eye for an eye scenario. I think it's more the energy you put out there. At least that's the way I perceive the term karma. If I put out good energy overall, look, I'm not perfect. I'm human. I'm going to be a shithead sometimes. I put out good energy, I'm going to get mostly good energy.
Yeah.
If I put out 20% good energy, I'm going to get 20% good energy back. If I put out 80% good energy, I'm going to get 80% good energy back.
Yeah. I don't even go there. I go, oh man, I snapped at that person. It wasn't their fault. My bad. Do I expect them to come back with smiles and rainbows? No. Obviously I would. So, and again, human, but in the religious sense of karma and the it's coming for me type of thing, or like only God can judge me. I'm not that, but I am certainly a reciprocal energy believer. That's where I fall in that.
Good answer.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Yours is, I'm interested because I know how you are with money. So I'm very interested.
Oh boy.
What is the best thing you ever bought?
Best thing I ever bought. Okay. I'm going to go a little more general here. You can spend money on so many different things. When you say the best thing you ever bought, I'm actually not going to give you a physical thing. Travel and experiences. Travel and experiences is always going to be the best thing I will ever buy. Hands down. Travel teaches me so much and experiences teach me so much. I love to be taught and I love to explore. That also adds to happiness more than any one thing ever can. Yeah, that's my thing. And they're parts of my value system too. I know that's not a specific thing. Sorry. Kind of cheated on that.
Thing, Nicole.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
sorry.
fine. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I do. I appreciate that because I agree with you. I would like to travel more. I would like my kids to experience more travel because I do very much believe in that, how much you can learn about not just yourself, but the people around you, other cultures, other situations, how you really handle yourself in the unknown. I think that is of the utmost value.
It is an eye opener. It is an eye opener externally and is eye opener internally. Mm-hmm. In how you show up and how you present, and also in how other cultures are. I love the diversity of cultures. One of my favorite things to do when I travel is honestly to walk streets and look in windows. I know that sounds creepy. I'm always curious how people set up their houses in other countries. And are their kitchens big or are their kitchens little? Like, you go to Europe and they have these little tiny refrigerators and it's just such a different way of life. And it's like, wow. And I also go, there's things I love about the way they do things. And then there's things I'm like, oh, I like the American version better.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating to see just literally how people live their lives. I enjoy staying in resorts when I travel, but resorts will never show you the experience that people live in. So I actually prefer Airbnbs when I'm in other countries. I've been in the Marriott in another country and it looks exactly the same as the Marriott in the US. True. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't teach me anything. But if I go to an Airbnb of an apartment, it's like just a whole different experiences of seeing how people truly live, I think is the best learning experience you can have from traveling. And I love to find out about people's culture and how they do things, Yeah. Even the food, although like, I don't eat no creepy food. I can't, people are like, oh, you got to go to this country and eat the liver. And I'm like, no, not going to do it.
My brain won't let me get past that one.
Yeah. I'm like, I've heard some scary stories. Yeah. They're like, oh, you have to embrace. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't.
Don't tell me what to do.
Embrace what I don't want.
So funny. No, I dig it.
Yeah.
I can go with you on that one.
And I love the people watching. I'm all about watching the locals, like how the locals present, how they, it's just so fascinating. Mm-hmm. You know that Europeans can spot Americans in a second. Oh yeah. You know that, you know how they spot us? We smile.
Oh, really?
Yeah, most Europeans don't smile. That's a very American thing, is to have a smile on your face. And in some countries, if you're smiling, you're lying or you're hiding something.
Oh.
Isn't that wild? I'm just like,
I have to do some research before I go.
They can spot me in a second.
I'm so smiley.
I know. I'm walking around town just like, oh my God, look at that. Oh my God, look at that. Oh my God, look at that. And they're like, American.
It's funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, our listeners, if you had any takeaways or you know of somebody that needs to help define rest versus relaxation, please share this. Follow us on Instagram at Lessons of the Journey. And thanks for spending some time with us today.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Write your